Here we go, baby. Poor Yanqing is about to be removed from this planet. 163k. 336k. 500k. Boom! 900k damage on E0. Dude, I have the craziest surprise for you guys, like, of all time. And by of all time, I mean probably just today on Tuesday or Wednesday or whenever you're watching this. We got early access to Acheron. Weverse was kind enough to share their creator experience server, which to my knowledge is just gonna let me get to try things out a little bit early and then show them to you guys. And I'm really excited about it. Now, the one thing I do need to let you guys know is that, of course, all this is actually still subject to change. There's still a week before Acheron comes out as of me making this video, and because of that, some things could get tweaked. So these are going to be my initial impressions based off of this early version of Acheron, but things could change, so stay tuned for my guide video. That's going to have everything fully up to date, fully correct, and everything you need to know. So one thing I need to let you guys know as well is that if you re-upload this content, it can be taken down by Hoyoverse, so be careful out there. I don't recommend re-uploading my content. I don't mind people reacting to it. I don't mind people watching it, but just know that that risk is there. Anyways, so let's talk about Acheron. So Acheron's got a couple really cool things going for her, and I'm sure most of you guys saw her ultimate ability. This character has one of my favorite designs of all of the Hoyoverse characters that we've seen so far, and specifically when it comes to her actual combat, she is unlike any other character in the game. So you probably heard what she does from the live stream, but now I'm going to give you the in-depth first look at everything Acheron. Basically, the way Acheron works is that she actually has a very special mechanic with her energy. Instead of having a regular energy bank, she has these sort of stacks, and these stacks are called Slash Dream. Now, once you get up to 9 Slash Dream stacks, you can activate her ultimate, which is going to deal a set amount of damage based on the amount of Crimson Knot stacks you have and your build, of course. So there's a couple different ways to get Slash Dream stacks. One of them is by using her skill. Her skill will grant 1 point of Slash Dream, whereas her basic will not. So you don't want to use her basic attack. It's also going to be blast damage, so it's going to hit 3 targets. And the second way to get Slash Dream is whenever an enemy gets a debuff on them, it's going to give you 1 Slash Dream stack. Now, because Acheron's signature light cone, which we don't have equipped right now, also gives a debuff, that can also count towards her stacks. However, this doesn't work for other characters. The reason is that whenever any unit inflicts debuffs on an enemy target using their ability, she'll gain a stack. And this can apply to like Pela if you use Pela's skill and it applies the ice res from her Eidolons, or it can apply to like Guinaifen with some of her debuffs or her dots. They will get 1 stack, and it's limited to 1 stack per ability usage. However, if she has her signature light cone that can also give a debuff, that is 1 stack from the light cone, but it's also 1 stack from her skill that says gain 1 point. Now, if you use Pela's skill that applies ice res shred and also have the defense shredding light cone on her, it will still only give 1 stack. And the reason is because her skill, Pela's skill, does not say gives Acheron 1 stack. Pela's skill just does what Pela's skill does. So effectively, you can only get 1 per action, but if you have her light cone, she gains 1 by default, and the light cone can add another one. That also means that if you run the defense shredding one, Resolution Shrines as Pearls of Sweat on Acheron here, it can also give her 2 stacks as well. Something else that's really important to know is that if you break an enemy with this, it also counts as a debuff. So that debuff can add to another stack. So let's go ahead and use her skill. And we're going to get 1 stack, as you can see here, because we don't have her signature. However, if we had her signature, it would have gone up to 2 stacks. This also means that she is basically unaffected by energy mechanics in general. So using Silverwolf's Nihility light cone isn't going to do anything for her. So I'm going to go ahead and do this again, 8 stacks. And now we're going to go ahead and get our 9th stack here. And as you can see, we are completely full. Let's go ahead and use her ultimate. And God, that is nasty. I love that. This whole like domain expansion thing she has going on is so sick. So basically you have 3 slashes, and they are weak to lightning, so you can't really tell, but each slash is going to take out a chunk of toughness regardless of the enemy's type. So you can actually break an enemy regardless of the typing that they have, and it's pretty disgusting. Now, the way her mechanics work is that every single one of her slashes that she does, she's going to do 3 slashes and then a finishing move, is that every slash that she does can take away up to 3 of these Crimson Knots, which are these flowers up above. For every Crimson Knot stack that goes away when you use one of these slashes, it's going to increase the multiplier of the attack itself. So I'm gonna go and use this. It's gonna bring it down to 6 and dish out some pretty okay damage. Keep in mind we're unbuffed right now. That's 12.5k, and then he's down to 6. Now we're gonna do it again. Now we're about 31k. That's just crit variance, down to 3 stacks. And then we're gonna do the 3rd and final slash. Boom. and then the 4th finishing slash. So as you can see, all of the Crimson Knot stacks are gone. And wait a second, why does she have an extra stack here? That's kind of weird. Well, she actually has sort of an overcap mechanic, and that's going to be the next thing we're going to talk about. So basically, Acheron has this mechanic where if you go over to her abilities and look at her technique thing, it's hidden away in techniques. It's called Quadrivalent Ascendance. And after using her ultimate, she gains 1 point of slash stream and inflicts 1 stack of Crimson Knot on a single random enemy. Now, this seems like not a huge deal. Basically, it just means, oh, you get 1 point back. But it's actually more than that. Because if you go to her talent and you scroll down to some of her traces, she has a trace that makes it so when the battle starts, she immediately gains 5 points of slash stream, which you could see earlier, and applies 5 stacks of Crimson Knot to a random enemy. And then when slash stream reaches its upper limit, for every single point of slash stream that you have that goes over, you gain 1 stack of Quadrivalent Ascendance up to maximum of 3. So you can actually overcap on 3 stacks of her energy and give it back to her after she uses her ultimate, which is super awesome. Basically, if you're driving her with a lot of debuffs in her team, you'll probably get 1 or 2 of these back every single time, and it is really nice to be able to loop her ultimate pretty consistently. That's like the most basic overview of the character I can give. The other things I didn't mention are that she basically gives resistance shred during her ultimate to enemies. This is basically to make it so that when she's breaking enemy toughness, it also is dealing maximum damage regardless of the enemy's weakness. If you're below talent 10, this isn't going to be 20%. As you can tell, it changes, but at talent 10, it's going to be 20%, which is basically ignoring their innate resistances. And the last thing I didn't talk about is her trace, the Abyss, which makes it so that for every Nihility character you have up to 2, she deals more damage with her basic attack, skill, and ultimate. Now, this kind of negatively affects her team comps in a way, because it limits the amount of characters that you can play with her and really get optimal damage on. However, this changes at Eidolon 2, and I'll talk about Eidolons in a little bit after I show you her damage, but I just wanted to give you guys a bit of a heads up. Basically, it makes it so you only need to run 1 Nihility unit, and you can get the max damage bonus, which makes E2 very strong. But I know why you're here. I know you want to see the showcase of Acheron in MOC. So let's do it. Let me show you how strong this character is without her signature and with her signature Lycone. So first off, we'll go with her signature Lycone. I'm going to show you the build that I have just so that you guys are aware. Since I'm playing Sparkle in this team, I'm going to have 109 speed, and I'm going to let Sparkle drag me up. I'm using 4-piece Pioneer Diver of Dead Waters, and I'm using the new Izumo set, which is going to increase the attack of your characters by 12%, and then also increase your crit rate based on the amount of other characters that you have that are on the same path as this character. So because we're running multiple Nihility characters, we're getting the 12% crit rate. All right, so here we go. So Payla's running Resolution, Shines as Pearls of Sweat. The reason I'm doing that is so that she can actually use her basic attack and still give a stack to Acheron. So watch this. Boom. She's going to apply the defense down. It's going to give Acheron a stack. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring Acheron to the front. Remember that Acheron only needs 9 stacks. And because she's using her signature, she's going to get 2 from this. So boom, she already has 9 stacks. And here we go, baby. This is the showcase you've been waiting for. We've got 7 stacks on him, so I'm going to attack him twice. Boom. 38k. Boom. More than that. And then since he has the most Crimson Knot, we're going to go ahead and hit him. And it explodes for 245k damage. Now, honestly, that's going to get higher, and you're going to see why. Once we have more Crimson Knot stacks, once we have Defense Shred, once we have Sparkle's ultimate, that's going to stack up way crazier. One of my favorite things about Acheron is that it's just whenever an enemy has a debuff on them, right? So if I break this Warp Trotter, it counts as giving her a stack because the Warp Trotter gets the debuff for break. So as you can see, we get 7 stacks, even though Fushuan doesn't debuff anyone. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to pull Acheron up to the front with Sparkle. We have Sparkle's buff. We have Payla's defense debuff. And let's go ahead and ult this and see how much damage she does. He's got 8 stacks. We're going to hit him. 156,000 because it's going to be AoE. It's going to hit all the enemies. Boom, another 150k. And the final hit, all the way up to 798k, dude. What in the hell is that character? That is insane. Guys, this is E0. This is E0 Acheron. This is with her S1 light code now. So keep in mind, we do have her light code. But E0 Acheron hitting almost 800,000 damage. We go ahead and pull up Acheron to the front. Use her ultimate. Here we go, baby. He's got 9 stacks. Poor Yanqing is about to be removed from this planet. 163k. 336k. 500k. Boom. 900k damage on E0, dude. What the hell? MOC 12 E0. Dude, they cooked. Holy shit. Let Hoyo cook. That is insane. insanely good damage. That is absurd. Now, the downside is that this is like very bursty damage, right? Like if you don't actually have her ultimate up consistently, a lot of her damage just disappears. Just vanishes into the void. Like, as you can see there, we did 67k single target, which is still pretty good, but keep in mind, we have Sparkle ultimate, we have Sparkle's skill, we have Payla's defense shred, we have all those things to get her to hit 67k, so her ultimate is a majority of her damage. So in a way, this is almost like very, very Eula, right? This is very, very Eula. But just for fun, he's at 1%. Let's go and, boom, boom, boom. And as you can see, with less Crimson Knot stacks and without the defense shred and stuff, it's a lot less damage. So that is the power of Acheron so far. Now, granted, again, this is with their signature light cone. It's E0, and the stats that I have are very achievable. These are not even close to as good as Fob's stats on his main account. Realistically, these stats are incredibly attainable, and you can get even better stats than this. But I've heard a lot of people say that her damage is locked behind her light cone, and I've seen a lot of math that honestly kind of supports that. So we're going to go ahead and switch to Good Night Sleep Well, which is the best 4-star light cone you can use for her. And I'm going to show you guys how well this one does in comparison. All right, so this one's going to play out a little bit differently. You'll see soon that we basically are going to take way longer to build up our ultimate in the first place. We're only going to get 1 stack when we skill, right? So we're not going to actually be able to ult until the next Sparkle turn if we want to really optimize our damage here. But it's not hoy over just yet because we do get the overcap stacks, which I do think comes in super clutch when you don't have her signature weapon. Gonna go ahead and use this on Acheron to get the 3-turn extension. Gonna use her skill, go right into it, and then use her ultimate. Let's see how much damage we do. It's not going to be as good as with her signature, but you can see we still have all the defense debuffs, and we have 9 stacks. So let's see how it goes. Boom, 97k, 200k, 300k, and all the way up to 600k, even with a 4-star light cone. Now, I'm going to be honest, that is a massive damage decrease. That damage decrease is crazy. The amount of damage that you lose from her signature light cone if you don't have it is absurd, especially for Good Night Sleep Well being one of the best 4-star light cones for most Nihility characters. The amount of damage bonus you get from this is absolutely insane. We have it at S5 too, so we're basically getting the full damage bonus here. We're still getting the full 72%. It's max level, our crit stats are cracked out. Like, we have so many things going for us right now, and just unfortunately, the damage was so much lower. And this is the main thing that I've heard that is a problem for most players that are looking to pull for Acheron. Because Acheron is not a character that needs her signature light cone, but she is definitely the closest one to it. Her damage without her signature is pretty dang good still, but it's not going to be meta-defining if you don't have her light cone. Her signature light cone makes up for over a 30% difference in overall damage, and in a worst case scenario for free-to-play players, it can make up over 50%. So it's an absolute monster of a light cone. And when I say that this character is not free-to-play friendly, what I mean is that if you don't pull for her light cone, it is a massive damage difference. Now, that's not to say that she's bad without it, because I genuinely don't believe that. She still trucks. She hits an insane amount of damage. But the problem is, if you're going to invest into a 5-star character like Acheron, you may be better off investing into a character like Jingliu instead, because you don't have to pull Jingliu's signature light cone for her to be very strong. Because Acheron doesn't have a lot of other options for light cones in Nihility class. Not ones that are going to pump that much damage. So it's a really tough position for her to be in, especially because there's so many people that love this design and love this kit and want to be able to pull her. Now, I'm not going to try to discourage you from pulling, because if she's a character that you've been looking forward to and you want to pull for her anyways, then I would honestly just suggest getting her light cone. But if you are just looking for the most free-to-play friendly meta units to pick up to beat MOC, I do think she's going to cost you a little bit more. And maybe that's why they're giving us 30 pulls for anniversary instead of 20. I don't know. But the difference is noticeable, and you will feel it if you have the opportunity to play both of these. Okay, so Yanqing has 9 stacks of Crimson Knot. He has the 2 defense debuffs. We have the Sparkle buffs, and we're going into our ultimate with Good Night Sleep Well S5. So this is going to be the best 4-star option at S5, and it's not even super free-to-play friendly. And we're going to cut him up. Let's see how it goes. Boom, 46. Boom, 98. Boom, 155. And 320k. And granted, you know, the amount of targets definitely matters. The amount of targets will definitely affect the overall damage outcome. So if he had 5 targets there, it probably would have been a lot more damage. 300k, essentially single target, it's probably a little bit less. It's probably just over 200k. Even hitting over 200k single target is pretty significant, but the fact that it takes 3 of those ultimates to whittle down Yanqing's health does kind of suck, and you're definitely going to feel that damage difference. With her signature light cone, you probably would have seen his HP get down to close to 50% just with that ultimate. So that is the tough and grim reality about Acheron. She is an amazing character, but her light cone is so insane insanely strong for her specifically, and it really does kind of suck. If you're trying to get a really strong character, or if you just really like Acheron's design, you want to main her, then I do recommend getting her light cone. Not because I think her light cone is universally good on other characters or anything, but specifically because she gets such a massive damage increase from it. So you might be wondering why I had only one Nihility character in my team. I guess I should have explained this sooner, but yeah, I was only running one Nihility character, which is super weird, right? Well, the reason is actually that Sparkle is so strong that it's actually better to run one Nihility and Sparkle than it is to run two Nihility. There's not any other Nihility characters that do so much for other characters on your team that can outdo Sparkle. However, this is by a very small margin. Technically speaking, if you wanted to, running another Nihility character could also be very close to the damage you're getting with Sparkle. So it just depends on the amount of characters you have invested in. Like, if you haven't invested in Gwenhyfen, if Pela is the only Nihility character you've invested in, and you also have Sparkle, then this team's probably going to be the best thing you can do. But if you've invested in some of the other units, like specifically Gwenhyfen is basically the only other person you're going to be able to run that's a 4-star, then this is like a decent setup. It's not going to be as strong as the Sparkle setup. If you want one that is about as strong as a Sparkle setup, you want to run Silverwolf. And the issue with Silverwolf is obviously the single target stuff. But if you manage to debuff enemies with her, which she can apply so many debuffs, then this is one of her stronger teams as well. It's running the double Nihility, Pela, Silverwolf, Defense Shred, and then the 4th slot can just be a flex. Now, some people are definitely going to be wondering about this, and I was wondering about it too. It's one of the first things I asked is Welt gonna actually be playable? Can you play Welt as a sustain unit with Acheron? And the answer is sometimes, if you get really lucky. Because the thing is, Welt's sustainability is not so consistent that he can keep everyone imprisoned all the time. So it's going to be a matter of, can you kill the enemies fast enough to where if the enemies do get a chance to attack, do get a chance to slip through the cracks, that you're not gonna die. The other thing with Welt is that he's specifically effective against imaginary enemies. You might be thinking, but Brax, he imprisons enemies regardless of their weakness with his ultimate. Yes, but you don't only need him imprisoned from his ultimate, you need him imprisoned from his basic attack and skill. You need to be able to break enemies. That's part of being able to delay them, as part of being able to sustain with Welt, and it is pretty tough. Now, I will say, one benefit that Welt does have is if you have this very specific light cone that not every single person in the game has, where you can get some energy back whenever you hit enemies that are defense shredded, because you're going to be running Pela in basically every single Acheron team. Every single Acheron team wants Pela. It's going to be very rare that you can get away with not running Pela. The reason is because there's not a lot of other options, and because Pela is AoE defense shred, she has debuffs on her skill if you have Eidolons, she has debuffs on her ultimate. She's just such a solid unit for Acheron specifically. She counts as one of those Nihility characters, and it's basically impossible to replace her. However, you can also run Welt instead of Sparkle as your second Nihility, and then also run a sustaining character. So like if you're going to play Vailu, for example, and you have Welt as your second Nihility, build Welt as a DPS. Just build him full damage. Screw his imprisoned. It doesn't matter. We don't care. We just want damage from Welt. Welt can deal some pretty solid damage, especially when Pela's defense buffs. The imprison's going to be nice, but it is what it is. But the perfect ideal team is Sparkle, Pela, Welt if you could solo sustain with Welt. If you can't do that, most of the time I'm going to suggest just Sparkle, Pela, Acheron, and then a sustain character. But that's why I was running Sparkle, because she actually unironically is one of her best pairings, even though you miss out on a big portion of her talent that's going to give her extra basic attack skill and ultimate damage. Sparkle is so strong that she beats that for having the second Nihility character. Now there's two more things I want to go over with you guys. One is her Eidolons. Her Eidolons are very strong, and honestly I think they're a little unreasonably strong, specifically because her light cone is so good. Acheron's signature light cone is so powerful that I'm going to actually unironically recommend people pull for it if they want to main Acheron. If you do not want to main Acheron, I can't recommend pulling for this light cone, and truthfully, I don't know if I would recommend pulling for her as a power meta unit without her light cone, specifically because the only time she's fighting Jinglu for the top spot is with this, which sucks because her Eidolons are also very strong, and there's going to be people that want to go in on Eidolons for her, but are basically, they have to get the light cone. But if you do go for Eidolons, E2 is going to be a massive damage jump for her, because getting 160% of the original damage is crazy. Crit rate increase against debuffed enemies is also really good. It's going to help you out if you have like some not as good relics, but you may end up being able to hit the crit rate threshold that you need anyways without it. If you are, then it does nothing for you, but you could also switch over to like crit damage body or something from crit rate, and then this is pretty good. Now E4 is very interesting because it afflicts enemies with an ultimate damage vulnerability state, which is going to increase the amount of ultimate damage you deal to them. This realistically is a pretty small buff until you get to E6. One thing I haven't been able to test is if this vulnerability state counts as a debuff, and if it gives her another stack. If it gives her an extra stack when entering combat, that's pretty dang cool. That's a pretty nice thing. Then again, it may not matter a ton, but it's a nice quality of life. And finally, you have E6, which I'm probably gonna pull for E6 over on my Twitch if you guys want to watch. It increases all type res spend for ultimate damage dealt by Acheron by 20%. So basically, not only is she reducing enemies' resistances by 20% with her talent and her ultimate, but she's also getting 20% more res spend, which is absolutely fucking crazy. The damage dealt by basic attack and skill will also be considered ultimate damage and can reduce enemy toughness regardless of weakness types. So her ultimate can already break anyone of any type. That was never an issue, but now her basic attack and skill count as her ultimate effectively. So her basic attack and skill are getting the buff from E4. Her ultimate's also getting the buff from E4. And then also, you're able to break enemies regardless of their element, regardless of their weaknesses with this. Now keep in mind, this is only for the low cost of like 2,000 US dollars, right? So like you don't actually need this at all. And I'm not going to recommend you pull for this unless you're just really horrendously down bad like me. But her Eidolons are pretty crazy. I think E2, if you are an Acheron fan, if you're a Mei fan, if you've been a fan of Mei forever, if you're just like, wow, I love Mei and Mei's the only character I care about in the game, E2 and S1 are the way to go. And it's going to be like 500, 600 pulls, but this is going to be one of her biggest damage jumps, and this is going to be one of her biggest damage jumps. In fact, her light cone is so strong that you should absolutely get this before any Eidolons, in my opinion. Oh man, this character is super sick. Like, I love this character. I can't get over the light cone thing, man. I can't get over the light cone thing. I wish that it wasn't such a big difference in damage. She's not like doomed if you don't get her light cone. A lot of people are saying that she's doomed if you don't get her light cone. Her damage is still pretty like decent without it, but she definitely wants a lot of investment. I'm hoping that they come out with some other light cone that is like a good 4-star alternative to this one, just like another one that applies a debuff, but that's more damage focused, and that could be really nice. But I don't see that happening super soon in the future. So Acheron is a super crazy cool unit. I absolutely love playing this character. She's super fun, but just keep in mind if you're gonna pull for her, that light cone is a big difference. And if you're holding out for any character specifically, like if you're missing a second sustainer, you want to be careful that you don't miss that character that you've been saving for a really long time because you wanted to max out her potential. If anything, if you do want to main Acheron and you're short on pulls, but you need like Fushuan in the future, or if you need like Lucha in the future or something, go ahead and just pull for Acheron and Lucha and then save for the light cone later if you're really like that interested in it. But there's one more thing I did want to show you guys. This is a super important thing that I think is going to be overlooked by a lot of people, and it's an absolute game changer. With her technique, you can just erase enemies from the game. Oh my god, dude. You can just erase them. You can just get rid of them entirely. They're just gone forever, and then you get the buffs. And you know what? It's not a huge deal in Overworld. It is kind of nice. It takes technique points is the problem, right? If you go into Overworld and you do this, it takes technique points. So it's not something you could just spam to free farm the world. But what this is going to do is make simulated universe runs so fast. The fact that I can just do this, and then I'm done with the fight, and I can just move on to the next thing, and then I I can just go to combat again, because why would I do another thing if I could just insta-kill the enemies? Watch this. Boom. Oh, wow. That was super fast. I can move on to the next domain now. Let's see what's in the next one. I have one technique point. I hope I can find another one. Oh, there's a health thing. Oh, there's no technique point thing. That's fine, because it's only one guy. We'll just get rid of him. And now we can move on to the next one. That's crazy. Look how fast SE runs are. We're already at the elite. Now, I can't do anything to this elite because I just have Acheron. I'll probably lose. I might not lose, actually. Nah, I'd win. But it's insane. It allows you to just run through SU so incredibly fast. Finally, Rowan May power crept by a TPS character. Anyways, you guys, let me know if you're pulling for Acheron and our light cone down below. I want to know what you guys are thinking about doing, because I know a lot of people are interested in this character, but I want to hear your opinions on things. And I'll have a guide out with like all of the really in-depth information, the builds and everything, as soon as Acheron releases. So stay tuned for that. Next up is Gallagher. And I'll catch you guys next time.